Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us John Terry, the Black Belt Leader. John, welcome to the program.
Mike, thank you for the invitation. I am so glad to be here today.
You know, I am excited to talk with you because, as you know, we met at a conference and I just loved your talk and you gave me your book and I already read it, reviewed it on Amazon, and I love your approach. So I want to dive into your methodology and your teaching and your books. But first, give us a little bit of your background because reading over your bio, you've got quite the pedigree, 3-time martial arts Hall of Fame inductee, 2-time best-selling author, and so forth. But give us a little bit of your story and your background.
Well, Mike, you've read the book, so you've heard my backstory. At 13 years of age, my parents relocated from a big city to a small town. I went from being the big city nobody to the small town somebody that every bully in school picked on. Dad said, John, I'm going to fix this for you. And he throws me in the martial arts. And now 5 black belts and 3 martial arts Hall of Fames later, I have the privilege of running the United States Martial Arts Hall of Fame. And I'm known across the industry as the Black Belt Leader. So what I found in martial arts is not only some incredible ways to learn to defend yourself, be situationally aware, but there's some incredible leadership principles hidden in the martial arts that are applicable to everyday life. And it's been my mission for the last several years to be telling that story to corporate America and individuals to help them discover, develop, and deploy their own unique black belt leader within so they can become a world-class master of who they are and what they do.
You know, I can only imagine when you started in martial arts and then all of the training and all of the things and the things you learn and that it kind of I remember I took martial arts for one summer at a YMCA back in the day, but I didn't do anything since then. But I do know that it's very structured and discipline and loyalty, all of those great traits. At what point of you going through your training did you start thinking, you know, there's some applications in martial arts and life, in business, in success, and leadership? When did those thoughts start getting clear for you?
You know, Mike, for me, it started early on because my dad was a big fan of personal growth and development. When I was 13, Dad introduced me to Dr. John Maxwell, who's become one of my personal mentors. And one of the things Dad taught me, he was a pastor. So Dad always looked for practical applications of the Bible or any lessons that we learned in life. And so from the time I was very young, Dad would always say, John, anytime you're going through something, there's more than one lesson to learn. And successful people pay attention to those lessons so they can learn them.
I love it. So your early influences, Dad as a preacher's kid, and then martial arts, and then learning lessons personally and in the realm of applying them to more than one thing. So let's talk about, you know, your title as the Black Belt Leader. What does it mean to be a Black Belt Leader?
Well, you know, Mike, I believe everybody's leading somebody somewhere right now, even if the only person they're leading is themselves. The problem for far too many people is they never stop to reflectively look inside and discover their passion, their purpose, and their calling. To be a black belt leader is to have an opportunity to go within and discover what it is that you've been put on this earth to do. I believe everybody's been put on earth on purpose for a purpose. And when we would discover that purpose, and they begin to develop ourselves through a lifetime commitment to personal growth, we now have an opportunity to deploy that greatness of who we are on the inside and make a difference not only in our lives, but make a difference in the lives of other people. And as a result of that, leave a lasting legacy to those that are one day going to take your place. That to me is what it means to be a black belt leader.
Yeah. You know, that's so interesting because I always like to think of things that you learn and applying them to other situations as well. And what you just said there reminds me of when you think about, you know, sales. And so many times people are like, well, I just don't like selling. And when I hear that, I'll say good, because a true salesperson isn't really that pushy salesperson you think of. It's just someone that explains and educates and teaches and just shows some options and sees where the person might need. But in reality, we all are selling all all day long at times where we have to sell the fact that, oh, I want to go to this movie versus that movie, or this, a restaurant versus that restaurant. So what you said about passion, purpose, and calling is not only what we think of as traditional leadership. I feel like when people say, oh, that's a book on leadership. Yeah, but I'm not a corporate CEO. I'm not a VP in a large company, but you can be leading yourself. You could be leading people that are around you to then achieve that passion, purpose, and calling. So talk a little bit about, a little deeper about when you learn to lead yourself, then that expands out to those others around you personally as well as professionally.
Yeah, Mike, you said it well. Every day, you're either leading yourself or you're allowing other people to lead you. When you're leading yourself, you have the opportunity to take yourself where you want to go. But when other people have hijacked your life, they're going to take you where they want you to go. And you're going to end up living less of a fulfilled life than you would if you were living life pursuing your purpose, your passion, and your calling. That's something I learned early on. And dad made sure to point out, as did my mom, when they would see other people that were influencing and potentially taking me in a wrong direction, and help me see the roadblocks, the pitfalls, and the dangers that were ahead. And as a result of that, I realized I am responsible for my outcome in life. Yes, I'm a person of faith, and I lean on God's direction and guidance in my life. But at the end of the day, it's the choices I make that determine the outcomes I'm going to experience in life. And if I'm not learning, I'm not growing, I'm not becoming a better version of myself, I'm probably not making the best choices that are going to lead to the best outcomes. And at the end of the day, we want to be successful. We want to truly be able to lead ourselves well, but that comes through learning, through growing, making sure we make those good choices. And when we mess up, and we will, we learn from those mistakes so that we can get the lesson life's trying to teach us and apply that so we don't make that same mistake again.
Yeah, 100%. I love purpose and passion and calling, and I want to go a little bit deeper on a couple of those, because I feel like people could go purpose and calling, aren't they the same thing? But I want to start with saying that I love how passion is tied into that, because so many times we feel like if you set these certain goals, you feel like you're pushed. And it's like, oh, I've got to do this thing. But if you are passionate and you set those goals the right way with your why in mind, you're pulled. So it's not a push where you feel overwhelmed. You feel your passion kicking in and you feel drawn toward that. And that's a whole different feel, right?
Oh, you're exactly right. Mike, in my book, Black Belt Secrets of Success, I talk about the 5 Ps. It's 5 camps that you go through climbing your mountain of success. And purpose is that first camp, because until you understand your why and the passion for what it is that you do, you're really not going to pursue that with all your energy, all your effort, and all your might. And you're only going to be, on a scale of 1 to 10, you're only going to be a 4 or a 5 in terms of success, because you're just going through the have-tos rather than the want-tos. When you discover your purpose, what it is you've been put on this earth to do, and you understand that that can also become a calling in your life that drives you to move forward, now all of a sudden you begin to see and seize opportunities that are sitting there right in front of you, that without purpose or passion to awaken you to those opportunities, you often walk right past them. And then you look back with regret later on, wondering, why didn't I see that? It's because you weren't tuned in to your passion and your calling that drives your purpose, that allows you to love it, whatever it is that you're doing. My dad said growing up, John, if you learn to love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. Well, I love what I do, but there's work involved. But because I love what I do, the work to me isn't tedious. It's something I enjoy doing, because I can see the benefit of that and how it helps me, but how it also helps those I'm serving.
So what do you find is like the delineation difference between purpose and calling? Because I feel like if you had those 2 circles, there is some overlap there, but where is the clarity between the 2?
Purpose is your underlying why. Your calling, to me, is the audience that your purpose is being directed to. So understanding your purpose is the why of what you do, why you do. The calling are the people that you're actually going to serve and to deliver your purpose and to get the results that they're looking for you to help them achieve in life.
Yeah. So like your purpose could be, I feel like I want to change the lives of a million entrepreneurs. Well, the calling might be, but this type of entrepreneur and using this type of platform to make that change. So it's like dialing in with that magnifying glass.
Oh, exactly. It's like really defining who your target market is that you have been
Mhm.
called to serve and how your
Yeah.
purpose is going to serve them. And when those two align, incredible things happen in your life and in their life because you're serving them at the highest level, giving them 100% of yourself, and you're making a difference that truly makes a difference.
Yep. So in your new book, Black Belt Secrets of Success, you talk about climbing the Mount Everest of success, and you just mentioned that the first camp was purpose, right? So talk a
Yes,
little
sir.
bit more about some of the following camps as you make that climb.
Well, you go from purpose to persistence, and that's where the hard work begins. Once you discover your purpose, how do you actually fulfill that purpose? That's where you persist until you succeed. There's a
Mm,
price to pay if you want to get to the top of the mountain, and so either you're going to pay that price or somebody else is going to pay that price. There is pleasure involved, or there has to be some pleasure involved, because as we've already said, if you don't enjoy what you're doing, you're really not going to do it and give it your all. And it's only going to be average, mediocre, lackluster at best. But then that fifth camp is what we call passion. It's that understanding that I have an opportunity to change the lives of not just myself, but other people. And I determine at that point how my legacy is going to be defined and how I'm going to be remembered when I'm gone.
yeah.
Those five camps and the lessons we learn along the way help us climb that Mount Everest of success, get to the pinnacle that truly becomes the significance of how we live our lives.
I think that if you saw all of those camps listed in bullet point fashion and you said these are you put your hand over those bullet points and said these are the secrets of success and drum roll please, and then you unveiled them, people would read the words and go, yeah, okay. And it really, they wouldn't get the full import until you dive in and just really illuminate what purpose is and what persistence really means. So what I would wonder is, there's going to be some people that go, that I get it, I want it, I just don't know what I want. I think that in a lot of personal development programs, I hear some of those points coming up where the trainer will say, I sit down with someone and go, great, well, what do you really want out of life? And they go, I just don't know. So what do you do when you're working with a client and helping them come up with that passion and purpose, and they are having trouble really clarifying that?
I take them back to belief, Mike, and I talk about that in my book, Black Belt Leadership 101. You can't achieve what you don't believe. So when I'm working with a client, I go into their beliefs and understand what they believe about themselves, what they believe about their passion, their calling, and I get a lot of clarity there before I move them forward. Because until they truly believe who they are, what they're capable of, and they truly believe in their passion, their purpose, and their calling, they're never going to really step into that uncomfortable place where success happens, where growth happens, where you get a chance to lead yourselves and influence others. They're going to hold back. And as a result of that, they're never going to rise to the full potential of who they could become.
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta have to give them that thing to strive for. And I know that you agree with this. It's not about the achievement of that specific goal. It's about who you become and how you change in getting there, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, sir. Yeah, it's not about the accomplishment. You run a 100-yard dash, you won, but you become a better person from training yourself to win that race. But now to get success, you got to go run another race. So
Mm.
it's not just the successes. Success is benchmarks along the way as we see ourselves learning and growing. I challenge audiences all the time. If you can be 1% better today than you were yesterday, and then again tomorrow, do that same thing, get 1% better in one area of your life tomorrow than today, and consistently do that for the rest of your life. How much better of a person are you going to become? How many more people are you going to have a chance to influence and change and have an opportunity to really make a difference that you'll be remembered, not just for weeks or months, but for years and decades after you're gone?
That reminds me of Darren Hardy's book, The Compound Effect, the
Yes.
1% difference. And it's not like, okay, you need to make a 40% difference this week, because sometimes those things feel so much bigger and unattainable. But if people look at what a 1% difference would be, it's like, oh, I can do that. But then
Yeah.
when you do that on the next day and the next week and the next category of your life, all of a sudden it starts to compound. And like that example of, I don't know the exact numbers, but would you rather have, $2 million cash right now or one penny that doubles every day for a month? And people like, give me the $2 million. But in reality, the doubling has that huge compound effect. So I think that
Absolutely.
people look at the end and go, oh, I could never do that big thing. But if you break it down to just this first step, it's like, oh, well, I could do that. So talk a little bit about, making sure that we know where we're headed with that bigger goal. We need to have that big vision, that big purpose. But if we can break them down into those attainable pieces, daily, weekly, monthly, now we're making progress. And that almost is that self-motivating aspect.
Mike, one of the things my mom asked me early on, I thought it was a really dumb question until she explained it to me. She asked me when I was about 6 or 7 years old how you eat an elephant.
Yeah.
And I looked at her and I said, I have absolutely no idea. I don't know if you start with the leg, the trunk, where. And she laughed and she said, John, you start eating the elephant one bite at a time.
Yeah.
And when we're called to do something great, we've got this incredible gift that God's put within us. And we have an opportunity to change the lives of ourselves and other people. Sometimes that task seems daunting. But as you said, if we can take that big, audacious goal, and I'll give you an example. A good friend of mine wanted to lose 100 pounds. Now, losing 100 pounds when you're 300 something pounds, that's a lofty goal. And he wanted to do that in 1 year. But he broke it down into saying, okay, if I want to lose 100 pounds, then I need to focus on losing roughly 9 pounds a month. And then he broke that down into a weekly goal, and then from there into a daily goal. And he figured out if he could lose a little over a half a pound a day, every day, over the next 12 months, he could lose 100 pounds. Well, he accomplished his 100-pound weight loss goal in 9.5 months because he realized after he got started, he began to see success. And he began to understand a concept. I say that you reward success so that it gets repeated. And every time he would lose weight, he would go do something that gave him some energy and some excitement and some type of reward. And in little over 9.5 months, he lost 100 pounds, ended up losing 120, and has kept that weight off now for 20 plus years.
Wow.
Because he realized that when he took that big goal and he broke it down, he could do a little bit every day, alter his eating habits, alter certain things in his life that ultimately brought about the big change that he wanted over time.
And the neat thing there, I've used this example so many times where very similar to what you just mentioned of, hey, if you feel like you really need to get back into working out and you haven't worked out in decades, please do not go to the gym 6 days a week, 2 hours per day, because about the third day you're going to quit because you're so sore. So you have to pace yourself. So in your example there, I'll bet you that about 3 months in, 6 months in, he started doing things like even more exercise than he thought he was going to do because it was like really motivating. He saw progress and he's like, well, I could do more. I could do more. But yet, if he had done that day 1, day 2, day 3, it would have been overwhelming. So you have to realize, yep, here's my true north. Here's my big old goal. Here's my daily. But I'm not going to get ahead of myself because you have to realize what motivates and doesn't motivate you. And then I think a cherry on top is recognize that you need to gamify it as well and reward yourself at different milestones to kind of keep that momentum going.
Yeah. Well, think about it. If you haven't worked out in 5 years and you say, I want to get myself in shape, what if you started with something simple, 1 push-up and 1 setup? And then you add 1 push-up and 1 setup every day. In 30 days, you're doing 30 push-ups and 30 sit-ups. In 60 days, you're doing 60 and 60. In 6 months, do the math, you're doing over 240 push-ups and sit-ups. And all of a sudden, you find that you got energy you didn't have. Now you're probably at least walking, if not jogging in the neighborhood. And all of a sudden, you discover you're capable of becoming so much more than you dreamed of 6 months ago because you ate the elephant 1 bite at a time.
Mm-hmm. I think that if we were to pull back to the 30,000 foot view or 60,000 foot view of all of these, camps in the achieving of Mount Everest of success that you've mentioned, it's not just getting there, like we've said, it's about the progress you make in your own self. But I want to talk a little bit about your thoughts on striving and then moving to thriving, meaning once you start attaining these things, even halfway through, or when you get to a certain level and then you readjust your goals, at what point do you find your people that you're coaching thriving to give back and go, okay, now I'm going to go and teach people what I've been learning, because that not only is the give back principle, but it's reinforcing to myself what I've been learning. And then now it's amplifying the effect.
Dr. John Maxwell's been a mentor of mine for many, many years, Mike, as you know. And Dr. John talks about 5 levels of success, moving from position where people have to follow you because they have to permission, where you get permission to lead them, to where you're getting production from them and yourself, moving into people development, and ultimately the pinnacle of where you're developing other leaders around you. As I think about, the goal of going from just striving to thriving, I think of the example of a train. To get a train to go, massive engine, massive weight, but a small chalk can hold that train from moving forward. But once you begin to get momentum and you get past that initial striving to see some success in your life, when you're rewarding success and recognizing it and honoring that success and allowing it to compound in your life, all of a sudden momentum begins to carry you forward, and you see yourself as capable of doing and becoming more. And people see that. And when people see what they want, they become attracted to you like a moth to a flame or a butterfly to a flower, and they want what you have. And then when you have the opportunity to teach and train and add your collective wisdom to that of other people, you are empowering them to do what you've done and more, because they've had life experience that you haven't and that I haven't. But when they can add your experience and my experience to their own, they get to shortcut success because they've learned what we've learned without having to go through all that we had to do to get there. And that lets them accelerate their opportunity to go from striving themselves to thriving in their own lives.
And using that training example, I've used a similar example many times, which I think the concept is like the switchback or something like that, where you change tracks and all it is that little bar that switches over. And once you're in momentum, that little slight pivot, that's really simple because the train's going down the track and then it just makes that little veer. It's not a 90-degree turn. So I think many times in life, it's like, we don't need to do 180-degree turns, 90-degree turns. Sometimes it's just a little pivot, a little bit of a enhancement to what we're doing. And when you're in that momentum, that little slight pivot is very simple because you're just forging ahead. And I think that goes right along with what you were saying, because it really is that, like Tony Robbins teaches, constant and never-ending improvement. We all need to just be doing that 1% improvement every single day, every single week, knowing where we want to go. And when that fire of passion is guiding us and encouraging us to that, that to fulfill that purpose, boy, I think that we just have reams of books that we can put into the achievements that'll happen.
Oh, absolutely. It's like the pilot that's flying from New York to San Francisco. They're constantly making little adjustments as they're adapting to the wind and the currents to keep the plane on track to get it where they want to go. It's the same thing in our own lives as we're doing things today and making those things happen. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I love it. Well, John, it's been a real pleasure chatting with you today. I love how you tie in these tried and true success and leadership principles into martial arts and the black belt leader principles. So thank you so much for coming on. If someone is interested in learning more and reaching out and connecting with you and buying one of your several books, what is the best way that they can do that?
Mike, the easiest way to find all my contact information is to go to my website, beablackbeltleader.com. That's beablackbeltleader.com. All my social media is on the Contact Us section, and they'll find a store where they can get access to the books, courses, all the other resources we have. Or if they want to book me to come speak, they can do that there as well.
Excellent. Well, John, thank you so much for coming on today. It's been a real pleasure talking with you.
I appreciate the opportunity, sir. Thank you for what you do, and appreciate the opportunity to share with your audience today.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.